Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first in our series of Developing Connections. And that is a series where we're just having a chat with different people from around the world about grassroots community change and some of the ideas of Manavidea and the people-based development approach to trying to get improvement through self-help. So just start with introductions. We've got Doreen here from the UK. Doreen, do you want to just give us a little introduction as to who you are and where you're from?
Hi everyone. So my name's Doreen Kelly and I, well, clearly from my accent, I'm from Scotland. However, I don't work in Scotland. I work in the southwest of England. I'm based in the city of Plymouth in Devon. So I work with people who have got disabilities. We have an organisation that supports people to leave institutional care and get essentially go back home to the place that they previously lived in before they were institutionalised. And the aim is to help people get a good life.
Perfect. Okay, thanks, Doreen. Ilrida, do you want to tell us a little bit about you?
Hi everyone, my name is Ilrida Fazlio. I live in Norway. I'm a current master degree student. So I'm in my last semester writing the master thesis. The topic is pretty much about social workers and how they work with youth that has a mental health challenge. So I've been working with youth the last 6 years in different institutions for child care institutions. So yeah, that's my experience.
Brilliant. And I'm Alistair and I'm up in Scotland, and my experience is also in social care, a lot of work around about people's rights, challenging discrimination, and trying to encourage people to get the chance to live a decent life and take the risks that the rest of us would take for granted. So not be denied opportunities to do things, even if it requires a bit of support. So I guess there's a lot of crossover between some of the aspects of our areas of work in terms of social care, rights, challenging things to move forward. What are your thoughts on the challenges of achieving sustainable change within communities? Because I guess one of the challenges with disabilities, for example, is about inclusion, people being valued and having a voice. Is there any particular things that you would think would be useful to highlight just now?
Yeah, well, I guess the issue for people who are excluded is the systems in which they live or operate. So if we talk about people being institutionalized, it's hard to have a voice. It's hard to have a voice if you're institutionalized. It's hard to have a voice if you require support from others. Sometimes you become a recipient of care rather than a human being who's requiring support. And I think sometimes we forget that we all need support. Just some people need more support than others, and some of us get that support from family, friends, from our community. But often if people need more support than that, they inadvertently, to some extent, end up in a category where they're seen as less valuable in some ways, and therefore have less voices. I think that's an issue for people. But I think the other thing also is if you're not in a 9-to-5 well-paid job, sometimes there can be inadvertent or subconscious prejudices about people in that respect as well. And I think we have a world in which it's often not those people making the big decisions in life. It's often not those people who are the politicians. It's often not those people who are running organisations. It's often not those people who are got the voices and got the power. So decisions about how those people are supported and those people are all of us. So let me just say that, and any one of us could have a disability, or any one of us could require support at any point in our life. But as soon as you fall into that category, to some extent, you almost become a little bit dehumanized, and your rights seem to fall by the wayside. So yeah, I think we need to think differently, and we need to think about how decisions are made. We need to think about organisations and how organisations behave, because often organisations can be quite toxic in people's lives, if we're being honest, particularly in some health services, in some social services, particularly maybe in some areas of social care. So we've got a lot to think about, and we've got a lot to think about at a big picture level. So politically, we've got a lot to think about. Organisationally, we've got a lot to think about, but also personally in our own lives and in our own families, we've got a lot to think about. So I guess that's where the Man of a Day stuff comes in. But yeah, I'll maybe stop at that and let Elrida say what's going on in her.
Thanks, Doreen. Elrida, what do you think?
I totally agree everything with that Doreen said right now. Even though we are in different countries, but the opinions and the system are quite the same. And my personal saying in this, that I got really spoiled both my practice years when I studied the social work was outside Norway. The first one in England, and the second one I went to Man of a Day in India, and we heard a lot the phenomena thinking outside the box, and we got to get some reflections around that. But at that time, it was hard to understand what that really meant, because when I got to work and the real life started, and you're just in a system, and this is your place, your role, go play it. So sometimes it was really, really difficult to play that role, because you see another, need, yeah. You see that the children and the youth has another need, and the system requires another something else, and then you just know where to find that balance. And I agree with Doreen, that's where the Man of a Day stuff comes in more further in the reflection. But you just have to hang on to the stuff that you have power to do in that position, and that's just focus on the communication, the relationship, to get that better, to get into. We often talked about the deep dialogue at Man of a Day, and I have valued that all my years in my career. So for me personally, maybe because I'm still I haven't experienced that much yet, but my focus has been there all the way, and that has been my strength. Because if we look at the weaknesses at in a system or in an organization or in an institution, that will destroy you as a professional, and it will come between the relationship with the kids and with the youth, because they really need you. So you can't get stuck in a political level, because you just can't manage to raise your voice enough sometimes.
I was going to say that's a really interesting point. That thing about not losing hope of, the system can crush you down. The system can be driven by processes, and some of what you're describing there, the difference between what an individual needs and what the system's prepared to offer, often is a poor match. And if the people deciding what individuals need are in power, then we just keep making these assumptions that we're the experts, don't we? And we keep getting it wrong. And we'll come back to that, I guess, when we're looking at some of the different ideas that Man of a Day does. But that's an interesting point. I've actually said at times that if I look back now to when I first got into social care, would I, if I realised we would still be talking about the same stuff now, would I still have the same enthusiasm? And people say I probably would, but although some things have moved on, I'm genuinely appalled at how the fact that we know something to be right, we know what makes sense and we can prove it works, doesn't actually make a difference, because a lot of the rest of the stuff is driven by process. And you know,
I was just going to say, it depends where, what you're describing is a situation where the power's sitting in the wrong place. So absolutely. the wrong people are being asked, and the wrong people are making the decisions. So, and it fits beautifully with the Man of a Day stuff. So if we started facilitating conversations with people who were paid to support, or people whose life we're in to help, then they would make different decisions, because they'd make decisions that met their needs. And what the system does, the system's in control, the system makes decisions to serve its needs. And the two are never going to dovetail. That's not going to happen. So if the system started facilitating, coaching, developing, listening, bringing out the voice of people, the system would get the answers from the people who get the support, who need the support, because actually people know what they need. And that's beautifully where Man of a Day sits. If we start adopting the Man of a Day techniques in our lines of work, working with people, it almost can't fail. And we do these daft things in organizations. We scratch our heads, we think, oh, how shall we solve this problem? And the answer is sitting in front of us, but we use the wrong processes to get to the answer. So we sit in rooms. I know people talk about blue sky days and thinking outside of the box, but it's all just words, because you can't do that. You've got to ask the people who are the recipients of the help that's being offered, to which are citizens. That's all they are. It's you and I. So I've been in situations where I've been on the other side of the fence. So I'm a service provider. I provide services to people with disabilities, but I've been on the other side of the fence trying to get support from my own family. And I always think of it as I remember this guy in Scotland wrote this book called The Care Maze. He was called Colin Mackay. It was many years ago. But I always think about when I was on the other side of the fence, there was still a maze, even though I was a professional, relatively confident, relatively assertive. I still couldn't, when I was looking for appropriate supports for my family members, I still couldn't find my way through that maze. So I think there's it. And we never will be able to, because the processes we're using are organizational processes, not people-based development. Organizational development, not people-based development. So, it fits beautifully with the approaches of Man of a Day. And the reason I'm so interested and I've been involved with about 12 of Man of a Day UK. That's the reason, that very reason, with the hope and the dream that processes will change to become people-based processes rather than organizational-based processes or political-based processes.
Perfect, thanks, Doreen. Ilrida, any other reflections on that point?
I think you can see at my face that I have responded to Doreen while she was talking, that I'm totally agree, and that's so true. People-based and organization-based, and that's a link in between.
Yes, and one of the other points that I think, just to add to that list, is as well, is because we've talked about the fact that just because we can prove things work, just because we talk about human rights, that's still not enough. And actually, something that we're seeing more of now is the deliberate propaganda popping the other way, where we victim blame, where we say that people who are poor are poor because they are lazy, because they don't, they could be millionaires if they just got off, their bum and did this. And, that rather than saying actually that what is the barriers to them having a good education, what are the barriers to them being supported with learning issues, with social difficulties, how are they being just punished and excluded? And so there is a real divide between people who are trying to include people and see everybody as equals, And as you've both been saying, create those opportunities for them to be the experts, rather than seeing ourselves having to come into a room with all the answers, which is the traditional way that management and people in power have approached issues, as the problem solvers, and that's a real shift, and that the strength of being able to say, I don't have to have those answers, I just have to listen and be there to help people have a voice. That's what good looks like, and that's an incredible shift for some people. And I think some people are just scared.
Yeah, it's a little bit like redlining, isn't it? So in the States, many years ago, what some people in power drew this red line around this area, and it discouraged people from giving those people mortgages, giving them jobs. So then you move on 40, 50 years on, and the people in the non-red-lined areas are, mostly white people, by the way, are going to university, they're homeowners, they're business owners, because they were supported both with the capital and with the lack of discrimination and the belief that those people were able to do it. They created jobs, lives, university jobs, but these people in this red-lined area, they had to rent, so they had to pay these other people's families who could afford to purchase houses and rent them back. They didn't go to university, so they were only getting the low-paid jobs. They didn't get the high-class jobs. So, and what that tells me is that, and mostly these were black people, but what that tells me is that it's actually nothing to do with those people, whether they succeed or not. It's to do with the system and the environment in which they operate. And of course, there's such vested interest in white middle-class people, with all due respect, creating environments in which they prosper and others, well, don't prosper, because it's about personal gain. But I suppose the other thing that makes me feel a little bit sad is there's generally enough money to be going around anyway. Yeah, so it doesn't make a lot of sense,
It's the kind of the lack of equality that's getting, the difference between the richest and the poorest is getting worse, and people are making excuses for that. And there's that thing about, if you believe in people, it makes such a difference. I don't know if either of you have seen the Blue Eyes Brown Eyes project from back in the 60s. Did you ever see that? Did you ever see that? It was a very morally suspect. You wouldn't get to do it these days, but it was a white teacher in a southern American southern state in America school, where there was black kids coming into the school, and she'd seen the startings of quite a racial tension, and what she did was she got the kids in, and she said that, I can't remember which way around it was, but she said that the blue-eyed kids are cleverer. There's been a study done, and blue-eyed kids are cleverer than brown eyes, so they're going to sit at the front of the school, the class, they're going to get more of my attention, and then she added bits like they would go first in the lunch queue, and she would praise them. Oh, look what a clever blue-eyed person that was, and they saw the difference in the behavior over a couple of, because they,
was she called Mrs. Hitler?
Well, you know what? But what she did right was she did that and she filmed it, and then what she did was she came back into class and she said, I've lied to you. Actually, it's brown-eyed kids that are cleverer, and she reversed it, and then she measured, the difference in performance, and the ones who were misbehaving because they were told they were stupid and stuff, when they were cleverest, they were behaving in this way. And then she eventually informed the parents and said, this is just to show that if people believe that folk are stupid or different and not as good as you, that will come out. And it was a bit, they were primary age kids, and I'm not sure if any of them got counselling afterwards, but it was quite a powerful. It's worth looking at. You can find the video on YouTube.
Because they didn't have the same opportunity. That's the difference. It wasn't a level playing field.
It wasn't a level playing field, and it's that is such a powerful thing. So thinking about when the ideas of
what did you call it? Sorry, brown eyes, blue eyes.
Blue eyes, brown eyes. Yes, if you look up that blue eyes, brown eyes experiment, you'll see it. The videos, and like I say, it's
the blue eyes thing. It's a bit scary, isn't it? That was one of the things.
And that's what she was playing.
Sure.
She picked on a genetic trait, and she made that a marker for either intelligence, good behaviour, and stuff. And then she turned people. It was quite. Some of it's you're verging on bullying, that sort of like, and look at that kid misbehaving. That's a brown. But she switched it back around, and I'd be surprised if people hadn't been. It made them think whether or not it scarred them as well. But
yeah, sure.
Very nice, thanks.
But it's just trying to find ways to challenge our own any deep-seated prejudices, and I guess trying to think about ways to get that step back from the just this is how it is. So how did you both get involved? I'll ask Illarida first this time. How did you get involved with Manavidea, and kind of how's it affected your approach to sustaining change, both in your work and in your life generally? Illarida, I was asking you first.
Oh yeah, me?
Yeah, you.
Yes.
Oh, I did. I
switched it up.
Doreen is going first.
No, I
Your turn.
All right, sorry. Yes, how did I get involved with Manavidea? So it was the year 2014. Varun and the Manavidea Institution had an agreement with Lillehammer University here in Norway. So we had to apply, and I was of course interested, always interested in traveling. So we wrote a motivational letter, and then it was on. So everyone who wanted to go, I think we were about 30, as I mentioned, 30 students. So we took the way, all of us, and ended up in Lucknow. And the rest is history. Yeah. So Varun picked us up, and I have to say that safety and everything about Manavidea is on top level. I felt safe and secure all the way from the day one to the last day we had to go home. So the program was really amazing. It was really organized, I mean. And the best part was to wake up, do the yoga and the aerobic training every day at 7 o'clock. So that disciplined me. Like, yeah, I like to wake up early anyhow, but to do that every day and to get the body and the mind with you all the way, and then after eat breakfast and then go to class and have different lectures with different people who would come, not maybe every day, but every now and then, and hold lectures about different topics. For example, the caste system. I don't remember everything now, but it was very, how do you say it? Yeah, I'm not going to use time for that word, but it was very
provoking.
Yeah, a lot of stuff happening all the time. Yes. How do you say it?
Yes, a full program. You were. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your mind.
It is a word in Norwegian, innholdsrik. It's rich in, full program.
Yes, detail. Okay, thanks for that. And then just about any couple of points about how it's changed your approach over time. Anything that specifically. So you've mentioned there, for example, about that conscious, that breath work about, calming, thinking, getting your body and your mind in the best place to then think about things. Is that something that's affected you know, how you've approached things after the Manavidea course? Is there anything else that you'd like to highlight?
In my professional work or private?
Anything? Yes, whatever you're happy to share.
I'm gonna be honest that before now, I of course had contact with Varun all the way, and I would held a yoga session for International Yoga Day, but it was minimal because the time. I know we learned that time is only a vision, or yeah, but it was literally impossible, almost, to hold on to the Manavidea thinking, both in professional and in work life. But I always had that in mind, so it has always been with me, even though it was tiny bits of it, until I recently developed more my own thoughts and thinking on Ida Nadi. So now I think it's more grounded. I had the time, I quit my work, I focus on studying, and then you have to have in a way the time to develop the way that Manavidea has set it up for you to use it. So it has to be in your mind, but also in your time or schedule. I think you have to schedule it more, like I am on my way to do it now, than I was before, because it's so easy to be drifting away with all the stress and all the work drama and all the family and traveling and all that was happening before the pandemic, maybe. So maybe it's now that we have the time to reflect, both in the environment and in ourselves. Mm-hmm. So now we are forced, I think, to reflect kind of way.
So I guess
because of the isolation. Yeah.
One of the things you're talking about there is having discipline, and I guess one of the problems with the pandemic is that sometimes we can just replace one thing with another. You know, we can just do endless Zoom meetings. We can just replicate what we had before if we don't stop and sit back and say, this is a time for us to reflect. That's really good. Thanks, Ilrida, for sharing that. Doreen, any particular thoughts how you got involved, and any reflections about how it's affected you and your approach to change?
Sure. Well, I mean, I kind of got introduced to Manavidea through a gentleman called Cal Paul, who is a great friend of mine and other people that are connected to Manavidea, including Varun and Pete. And so I went over to India as Ilrida did, and I spent, I think it was 3 weeks I spent over there. That was eye-opening. That said, before I went to India to do the course, Varun had been over and they'd done some work, and we'd done some work. We'd had a retreat with when I worked in Scotland, with lots of my Scottish colleagues, and we went to Samyling near Lockerbie and Estelmuir in Scotland, and we spent, I can't quite remember how many days, but it might have been the best part of a week doing work. It was that gave great insight into the work, and it also gave me, along with my colleagues, time to go through all of the 8 steps, to think about them, and in particular to do some of the calming techniques, the yoga, the collective reflection, the individual reflection. And those were the things that I think, if I'm being honest, they probably changed me. If I think about my career, the things that changed me most in my career was the initial learning that I did around person-centered planning maybe in the early 90s. And then I think the Manavidea stuff was the second thing that really helped me think about how to try and do my job different. And after the course at Samyling and after the course in India, I did keep things going for a long time. I got up in the morning and did my yoga. I'm not a morning person at all. When I worked in Scotland at Partners for Inclusion, the whole central team, there was like maybe about 25 of us, went back to Samyling and did another 2 or 3 day retreat there, using a lot of the techniques. So at the beginning, I was using a bit like yourself, Ellery. I was using the techniques a lot. We were trying to embed them in the organisation. We were using silences in meetings. We were using reflective time in meetings to problem solve and to think things through and to take time to think about decision making. We were all conscious that the people we worked with at the time, and in fact it's still the case, so people with disabilities are often time rich but relationship poor. So we learned a lot about that and a lot about thinking about how to help people get support, people with disabilities, to get friends and relationships and jobs, etc. So it did drive a lot of the work that I done and still do. One of the things here at Beyond Limits is as part of our, so one of the plans for me now being on the other side of the having to think about my future and having to think about my own retirement at some point. I've needing to think about developing some amazing young leaders that we've got in the organisation, and we use a lot of the techniques and thinking to do some of that, along with some of the other stuff about thinking organisations and some of the Nancy Klein stuff. So we abut those together in a leadership respect. But we also use them. We also use some of the skills in terms of planning with the people we support, giving people time to think, time to reflect, and we try to be and focus on facilitation and coaching. So as we are asking rather than telling, and rather than coming along with what we think is the solution, because we're never really going to know the solution. So. Some of the work in the organisation around the people we support and getting them lives and community presence and jobs is linked to some of the facilitation stuff, but so is some of the leadership and some of the work we're trying to do around self-directed teams and pushing responsibility out and accountability out within the organisation. So I have found it to be immensely helpful in my work and my career, and very, very universal almost. You can use it, I guess it's a way of life, isn't it? And if I'm being honest, I think I've been less successful in using it to make any major changes in my own life. Not that, I'm not, certainly not perfect, but there's nothing burning that I'm trying to work on. But I haven't kept doing yoga at home. I haven't kept doing reflective time. So I have mostly used it more at work. That said, I think that might be a slight missed opportunity. So for anybody starting now or anybody interested in the Man of a Day stuff, and I would encourage people to really get interested. It's a bit of a hard stuff to understand. It's a bit, I think the word I would use is a bit ethereal. It's a bit, you almost can't touch it until you do it. And then you think, wow, this is amazing stuff. It's brilliant. So, and I would encourage people, if anybody coming in, to start thinking about this stuff now, to use it personally and professionally, because I do think it would have great benefits.
Perfect. Right, that's an interesting. So that links in a bit to my experience, I guess, which I first found out about Man of the Day through Pete Richmond, and Pete would chat to me about how this was a good thing, and he thought that it would fit, and that I would kind of get a lot from it, and that I would identify with the values of it. In the early days, though, there wasn't a lot of information that was being shared, and so my first couple of interactions about what it was about was trying to really get a clear picture, and like you say, there's so many parts to it that initially I don't think I had that clear a picture. I knew bits about it, but I didn't get the sense of the whole thing. And so, but I thought, you know what, I've known Pete, and I think Pete's interested in a lot of the sort of stuff that I'm also interested in. So I thought, you know what, I'm not 100% clear on what this is, but hey, let's give it a go. And I went across, and I think, because Pete's described that he had the similar thing with Carl Pohl, a bit about, just going with being open to the idea. And I guess I went across to Norway in 2012 with Pete and quite a few other folks, and we explored stuff. and again, there was lots of links. There's lots of links to yoga, the mindfulness stuff that when it was first started, I guess would have seemed quite hippie and out there, and now it seems very mainstream. The link between your thinking in your personal life and how you approach things versus the approach at work, and the challenges of deconstructing all the mess, all the fakery that this society has created about where you're headed, what's important, what you value, and challenging all of that was quite a deep experience. I quite enjoyed it because I quite like digging a little deeper into some of that stuff. So I found that really useful, and I tend to be somebody who I don't just latch onto one thing and say this is the answer, right? I take all my previous learning and I say, well, what do I like about this, and how does that fit with other stuff? So like the work of Stephen Covey, for example, about consistency, about values led, about that all that kind of stuff, it fitted well with all of those other approaches. And I see that a lot of the things that we see now, asset-based community development being a key one, this absolutely does that, but it's got layers on top of that you develop yourself first and then you work at the community. So I still think it's streets ahead of some of the other thinking. There's other bits that are compartments of what Man of Idea does, but I think it holds it together well. I think what we've got to try and understand better is ways to, we've just said, to help people to see that really quickly. And for me, I think it's helped me to think about taking a breath sometimes, because I like to see change happen and I like to support people to change, but sometimes because of that urge to make, because folk have taken so long to get things to change in their life, sometimes I go, and I sometimes have to think, what's the best way of achieving this? What's the best way of getting people to listen to other people's story? And so I think it's made a considerable impact on my thinking, and it's given me names for, I guess, some of the stuff that I do. Some stuff I've done naturally and some stuff that I need to think about more. So if...
Alistair?
Yes?
Where in Norway were you?
Lillehammer.
It was...
Lillehammer, yeah?
We went to Lillehammer, but we were staying in somewhere else as well. I'll tell you about it later. I'll look it up.
It's fine. So Arne Brengallen and Bjarne Øverli?
Yes, we met them. Yes.
Oh, sweet.
We even managed to do a cross country ski, which I wasn't very successful at, and I did running instead. So I think
they came to the first one we did in the UK at Samiling.
Brilliant. So no, I mean, again, I guess that's something that we haven't really stayed in touch as much, and I think it would have been good to. There are some people who I did the course with who have still got friends in Facebook who were at partners,
That's right, yeah.
And it was, and it's interesting just that some of that stuff about how you view it and how open you are to that change. And I think so there is a bit about moving on to the next question, which is about a good starting point when thinking about change. For me, I'll just say that I think it's about creating that mindset that somebody's open to it, that you're not forcing it on them. Because I think any new idea that you're saying, oh, you must try this, I think people, they get a little bit, oh, you're trying to sell me something, and it turns them off. So I do think that creating that space to explore what's important to them, and then introducing how the idea can develop and what can support them to develop that change, can be really helpful. You got any thoughts, Doreen? What do you think helps as a good starting point for thinking about change?
Yeah, I mean, the first and foremost thing that helps about changing. And I think, well, I'm certainly rubbish as this is not being defensive and keeping an open mind. And it's hard not to, because and particularly if you don't reflect, I think it's very hard not to, because you're going along, you think you're doing okay, and when somebody kind of tries to slow you down, you don't want to be slowed down. So I think it's really about opening one's mind and thinking about it. It's about being hungry for information, and if you're hungry for information, you might get lots of information that's not any use to you, but you'll get the snippets. So I would just encourage people. But what I would encourage people to do is to try and touch it. Don't just hear about it. Don't just listen about it. Try and join some of the things. We have a monthly get together when we do some collective reflection, and it's a global meeting. It's an online global meeting where we've got Varun, the main man himself, the guru in my eyes, and lots of people. There's lots of his colleagues come on the meeting, and we do that one Saturday, the second Saturday, I believe, in the month. And I would encourage people to come and just spend it's an hour and a half of your time. If you are interested, just come and listen to those conversations, because that would be a way of trying to touch and feel it. But the other city looking to create changes, be aware of your own stuff, be aware of your own barriers, prejudices, because we've all got them. Be aware of your own thinking, be aware of your own anxiety to change, because that gets in the way. So try and keeping that self-awareness and trying to manage the anxiety and manage the defensiveness that we've all got, everybody's got it, and really put it to the side and go into it with an open heart and an open mind. And I do think if people do that, it'll change your life. It'll change your life for the better, for the much better. So that would be my advice. But do look us up online. Do look up Manavidea. Look up people-based development. Come on the monthly meetings that we do, or join. There's going to be change maker programs coming out. Join some of those. They're very cheap in cost, and it only takes a little bit of time to do them. So try it, because hearing about it and discussing it doesn't do it justice by any stretch. And just be aware also, there is nothing religious about Manavidea. It's not religious. It's not trying to sell anybody anything. So just getting all of that out of your head. We're a group of people that's just trying to change things in our own worlds and trying to help and join up with other like-minded people. So that's all we're trying to do. So that would be my advice to people. You can take that or not, but that would be my view on that.
Thank you for that, Doreen. That's really helpful. Ilerida, any other reflections from yourself?
Yes. What Doreen said, and also I just wanted to say that if you are a person that values quality versus quantity, because I've been in a place where quantity was taking over my life, speed, if you're not aware with the phenomenal quantity, where speed is. I lived in Oslo, and when you live in a big city, you can understand how things goes very fast, and you have to move on. And if you, on top of that, want to do many projects at the same time, and on top of that, if you are parents or anything else, I don't know how many roles we have to deal with. I'm saying it again because you will get overwhelmed by everything in life if you have many hands in many places, or your head in many places. So if you want, as Doreen said, a start point where you want to reflect and you want some you time, as we as a group have our time with each other, which is very effectively, like, you have to say what you want, you get to present yourself, you get to hear different point of views from different cultures, and then already there you are in my opinion, in a higher purpose level. As a human being, as a professional, we were talking a lot in Manavidea about higher purpose. So if you really want to find that within you, and to start somewhere within you to do a change, or at all to reflect your professional work and your personality as a human being. And as Doreen said, put the anxiety on the side, because I was really anxious when I started, even though I know Varun and the concept, but I didn't know where to go with myself in this concept. But I found my way. We started about August, and I was lost, and many changes happened. But it's so good to be here right now with everyone in the Manavidaya movement. You get to know wonderful people, and they are all so included and so kind. And yeah, you just have to experience it.
Brilliant. So that's important, about a space to explore and to feel safe to challenge yourself. Because as we said, if you feel, I think Doreen said it first, about if you feel like you're under attack, the response is to defend and to find reasons to kind of deny the things that are coming forward, even if you know they're true. I've seen that a number of times, where in other situations where folk have said, oh, well, you see, if so-and-so complains, it'll just be because that's who they are. So rather than saying this person's passionate and we're not finding a way to let ourselves hear what they're saying, so we better keep them at arm's length, I've often said we need to keep them closer. We need to get them at the table and say, go and tell us, help us understand what really matters, what we're not getting right here. But you need to have that openness, and you need to feel safe to do that. And some of these self-reflective and collective reflective practices help you to have the confidence that this it's not just words. This is a way of expanding your attention to detail and your ability to facilitate change, both in yourself and in others. And that is powerful stuff. And that's one of the things that I would say, this is powerful stuff. And it helps you to focus, as Elrida was saying, beyond the end of your nose, beyond the instant, the deadline that somebody's putting towards you, the pointless thing that somebody's statistics that folk are chasing, rather than the value-based stuff. What difference did it actually make? I was doing some work with an organization recently, and we were trying to look at some of the measures, and I said, did the intervention, did our involvement, did it make a difference in a way that made sense to the person? Not did we tick a box to say X, Y, or Z, but did the person value it? And if we didn't, then all the rest is just window dressing, and that we're measuring the wrong things. And this helps us to step back and measure the right things and get that balance. And I think that my experience is that by seeing that, by taking that time, we can do less but achieve more, because the franticness goes, and the focus is clearer, and we can get better results and outcomes.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'm just going to share the list of this is what Doreen was talking about, the list of the different parts of what we're trying to do. So real change through reflection and action. So we've got something called Development from Within, which is what Doreen was talking about. It's a monthly online retreat where we focus on reflection, connecting with ideas and how this can lead to action. And that includes some yoga and mindfulness. Then we've got the Changemaker program, which we're doing as an online program, and we're also developing an app. There's going to be a new website called People-Based Development, which is People-Based Development is the approach that Manavidaya uses. And what we're trying to do is trying to just create an introductory website that doesn't overwhelm people, that gives people a snapshot of just the basics, the introduction to the ideas, so that they'll be keen to find out more, and the idea is that we'll have a forum to connect others worldwide. And then finally, there's Manavidaya, the main organization, which has explored and developed grassroots empowerment alongside communities, facilitators and others for over 30 years, reaching over 10 million people. And that's for people who are keen to dig a little deeper. And those those figures, I mean, I still find it amazing that an organisation that's reached out and has touched so many lives is still so unknown. I was at the climate change demonstration last year, and we're talking about how we can change what we're doing and our thinking, and one of the things, obviously, of Mana Vidya we haven't even talked about today is about, you know, local sustainability, buying locally, creating ethical communities. And I challenged folk at there. I said, I bet nobody here has heard, even in a group like that, nobody'd heard of Mana Vidya. So we have a challenge to make this part of the discussion and let people understand that this is relevant in so many parts of our lives, personally, environmentally, socially, all these things.
I think the important thing to say on that, Alistair, is that we're not talking about a model of working, we're not talking a model of support, we're not talking about a model of social work, we're talking about a way of being, and a way of being that's much more about asking and not telling.
Yes.
And a way of being that's about people's development, about developing people, not developing systems, not developing big bank accounts, developing people. And I think those are three important areas.
Those are very important things
to think about. But it's a way of being. It's not.
Yes.
You know,
it's not a process. It's not a product, and it's not something. It's not an expensive thing as well. That's the thing.
Program.
It's focused on that idea that if we focus really on the right thing to start with and build up from the center, from ourselves, that we can all achieve phenomenal things, and that we just need that little seed of self-belief and building that around people, and then getting out of the way. There's no big...
allowing us, sorry Alistair, I was just going to say, and allowing us, me and you and everybody else, to be our best selves.
Absolutely.
So that's the gain. That's the only gain, that it allows you to be your best self with other people trying to be their best self and helping each other to try and be, and actually I describe it as to try and be a good citizen, to try and look after the planet, to try and look after people, to try and, you know, not fall into the traps of, you know, money being your god. So it really is it's beautiful.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah. I just want to say one little thing. Because I've been to like group meetings in my workplace, earlier workplace, where we have a guidance and we can reflect about our work. But my experience is that maybe every workplace has that opportunity for your place or for your workplace. But my experience is that you get stuck in a reflection about one case or that thing, you know. And you can never uplift yourself to that level that you can, as we call it in Norway, bird perspective, that you can see yourself from a higher perspective, you know, yes. And to lift yourself in a higher, just to see yourself in another perspective. And that is here with us at Mana Vidya a beautiful opportunity, because we have all different experiences and we all come from different places and we see things different. And my experience is that you learn even more when you learn more about yourself and more about your own system when you can hear about another one, mm-hmm. and another one and another one. So together, it's for me, that's what I call complete. Yeah.
And that's a perfect way to end the show, because that's about developing connections, which was what we called it. You couldn't have written that script, could you? Thank you very much to Ilrida and to Doreen for joining us today, and we'll be back next month with another chat around about some of these issues, and we'll hope you'll join us, and we'll hope that you can follow up on some of these links and have a look. There's nothing to be lost, there's no pressure, just join us, have a little think, and we think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Thank you, Alistair.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.